Welcome to the Hooked Pod. I'm Chunk.
I'm the Chippy. Who have we got on today, Chunk?
And today we've got the Chip's son. That's weird saying that. Brad Vale, who we're doing a remote session today. Brad lives in Hopetown on the south coast, rugged part of the world.
Of Western Australia.
Just like his moustache.
How you going, Brad?
Good. Yeah.
Been working all day?
Yeah, just got home, trying to keep out of the rain.
Where did it all start for you, Brad? Fishing? Diving?
Probably some of my first memories is catching bream in the river, in the Swan River in Perth, and down in Hopetown, actually.
On holidays? Yeah.
Fishing off the jetty, catching herring off the groin back in the day. One memory that comes to mind is fishing at 2 Mile when the tide used to go out. We used to fish on that reef that run up off the beach there. And
yep.
Yeah, that's some of my first fishing memories, I reckon.
That big long rock.
Herring, skippy?
Yeah, herring, skippy. And then, getting into salmon and things like that as I got older.
We used to go back to the caravan park and cook it up for breakfast.
Yeah. When I got a bit older, diving-wise, I think I just started jumping in off the North Mole in Perth and that when I got a bit keener with some schoolmates. Used to get some craze off there and, later on it obviously escalated into getting a bit more serious when we got a boat.
How'd you get into your diving? Did your mates, dads and whatever that are into it?
I can't really remember how. I think we just started with gidgies jumping off the groin and we were probably keen. Like, you used to fish for snapper in the storms and that. And, as things progressed, we sort of thought about trying out diving and get some craze. Used to jumping off the groin back in the day with just a gidgee and didn't really know what we were doing, didn't know how to equalise. I remember, bleeding from the nose a few times, just got no idea what we were doing.
I'm sure that would have excited Mum and Dad.
And then, I met a few people that were part of a dive club, WA Undersea Club, and when I was living in Perth, I joined that and met some people through that. And we had a tinny, so used to do a bit of diving out of that, but nothing serious. And then, as I met more people that were right into it, back in the day, it was quite a bit more niche, I guess. It's a lot more popular now, spearfishing. So
yeah,
but back then there was a smaller community doing it.
How much was it? How many people were in your dive club when you first sort of started up?
Oh, there was only a couple of hundred in WA Undersea Club. There's a couple of thousand now. Like it's all over WA, and there's a couple of dive clubs in WA in Perth. And then sort of went on a few trips with some guys that were pretty good at it. Just north of Perth, a couple of hours north of Perth there, chasing baldies and dewies and that. And I was just learning off them. I was very green, couldn't dive deep or anything like that. And then, as I was, watching more people, I started getting some better gear and practicing more and ended up trading Grandad the tinny for a little boat, little fiberglass boat. It's a 4.7, I think it is. Well, you guys have got it there now. And I said to Dad I wanted to pull the seats out and turned it into a dive boat. So I pulled all the seats out and made a heap of deck space. It just had an esky in it. Then I was able to do some trips to Rotto and cray diving. Got a bit more serious.
Exmouth, Coral Bay.
Yeah, went away sort of when I was 18, 19 with some mates. Did a few trips up there and, we used to take sort of two or three boats to go on a group and, dove around Coral Bay and Exmouth and those sort of places. And
you're still pretty passionate about fishing out of a boat. I mean, it's not obviously just about spearfishing when you're in the water.
No.
Do you still just like free diving as well, or is it mainly the kill for you?
I still like diving. I definitely don't do it as much. Probably living down on the south coast doesn't help. It's obviously different down here and there's obviously bigger sharks and it's a bit colder and that. You got to be pretty keen to get in. It's got to be pretty good weather. But I think being underwater is just different. Seeing what it is like down there compared to just fishing is just a whole different thing.
It's pretty special down there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite relaxing, and when you're diving a bit deeper in that and you're in good conditions and the visibility is good, it's quite a good feeling. You sort of forget what's going on the surface in a way.
Yeah.
And you just, the day goes by pretty fast and, it's always a good time.
What's the main thing that people have to remember when they're starting out diving, Brad?
Definitely do a dive course. There wasn't as much available probably back in the day. There's a lot of people doing dive courses out of Perth and that now and all around Australia. So yeah, you can do like your level 1. You'll learn sort of what happens to your body, how to breathe properly, how to equalize, and obviously the risk factor and all the important safety parts.
Yep.
That's probably something that I lacked in when I started. We just sort of winged it until I started diving with some more, some guys that were doing it properly. Yeah, you certainly find out pretty quick that you're probably doing some sketchy stuff that wasn't the right way to do things.
And learning off guys who are experienced, a bit older, been doing it for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I suppose that's the benefit of club, you've got such more older and experienced people around you.
Yeah, yeah. And people were willing to take you under their wing and take you out diving. Like I met some of my good mates now I met through the club, like Tim and Justin, and we're lifelong mates from meeting through that and used to dive together. And I think that's a good thing too, is diving with a group of people that you sort of trust each other. It makes a big difference. Obviously, diving with someone you dive with regularly, yeah, using the one up, one down buddy technique, always buddy diving when possible. Yeah, and it makes you obviously more comfortable in the water, knowing that there's someone there that knows thinks the same way you do.
Bringing fish up from down there and not having to worry about what's behind you, does that ever bother you?
Yeah, it does. You definitely think about it. I think the more you do it, you do get more relaxed and you sort of learn sharks' behavior, especially up north. Not every shark's there to kill you. It's just learning to be in the water with them. And obviously, certain circumstances, they differ on, like, yeah, the visibility, the conditions, obviously where you're diving, how many sharks are around.
You probably got to learn to relax a bit when they're around too, don't you? Which is, just take it easy and don't try to, provoke anything or just keep an eye on them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, most of the time, if you're just free diving, they're never really going to bother you unless they're, a great white or something like that. It's a bit different. But most of the sharks up north, even the tiger sharks and that, when you're just free diving and you're not spearing anything, they're quite docile and you can actually quite comfortably be in the water with them. When you are spearing and there's blood and action in the water, that's obviously when the sharks get excited and they want a free feed while it's dangling there. So, yeah, you obviously have to learn how to sort of defend your fish and work together and, yeah, poke the sharks away to let them know that, yeah, you're sort of in charge.
I remember going on a trip with you and your mate Justin that you were just speaking of a few years back up at Turk Hardog there, and we went up to that reef up towards Carnarvon there, and we were 100 k's offshore, or more.
Out near Dorian or something, wasn't it?
It's between the two, yeah. Keep that quiet, that's a good spot.
The chips just blew it for you.
Yeah, that was a good trip.
There was this other boat there, and there's about 4 divers in the water, and there's one bloke on the boat just throwing chum in the water like it's nothing, and I'm like, holy crap. And you and Justin are like, oh, yeah, we've done that plenty of times before, it's just normal stuff. And I'm just thinking, you blokes crazy.
Trying to get the mackies around the boat.
Yeah.
But they had about 6 tail fins sticking out the back.
Yeah, no,
mackies and
they were dive and drop off, obviously trying to shoot mackerel, and wasn't very good weather either. Like, was it? It was pretty ugly when we had to head back south.
Pretty choppy and would have been pretty murky down there. But what's that like when you're in those situations? When you got someone chumming up and you've obviously got a massive bait ball and then bigger fish come and
when you're chumming, you're sort of mindful of like how big a chum you cut up to. Like, obviously, if there's massive chunks, you sort of attract, more sharks and things like that. So you're trying to attract, if it's mackerel, you're trying to chum up to the certain size bits of fish that they're going to come in and eat. You don't always have to chum. Like, it depends on what you're chasing. If you're chasing pelagics, it definitely helps, or things like snapper that are hard to shoot. You can chum up and try and get them up in the water column to be able to shoot them. But yeah, shooting mackerel, pelagics, tuna, things like that up north, obviously most people do chum which does bring the sharks in. You have to have a bit of a system with the divers in the water that usually you'd have one guy chumming, one guy's diving as the schools come through, and then you might have one guy's just there sort of fending the sharks off when you do shoot a fish or helping out. Then you generally have a flasher in the water as well, which is kind of like a teaser that sits mid-water and has all mirrors and bits and pieces coming off it. That actually attracts the fish. Funnily enough, like every now and then, we've had sharks eat the flashes just because it's interesting to them. They end up dragging through the water.
Yeah.
You've always got to be watching, keeping an eye on each other, and try and always have someone in the boat. Like having a boatie always driving around rather than just being anchored is a big thing too, because you can obviously, if things do go wrong, you can get out the water fast. You can call the boat over when you shoot a fish, get the fish out of the water fast.
Yeah.
And just minimise the
risks.
The sharks, trying to keep them calm.
You had an interesting year in 2016.
Yeah.
You did a little trip up to Exmouth in the Red Boat and with some other guys, bit of Coral Bay, bit of Exmouth.
Yeah.
Looking back on what happened back then, and you can elaborate, do you think social media does justice to when you post something, Facebook, YouTube, when things don't go exactly to plan? Would you do the same as what happened and tell everyone out there what happened?
Yeah, so diving off Coral Bay, fairway north actually. We steamed up there and diving a drop off, and we're chumming up for mackerel. Yeah, we had heaps of sharks around that day. Like there's heaps of them up there, and it was just common. It was just another day of a dive trip. I think it was like our third or fourth day up there, and we'd all poked sort of the same shark 2 or 3 times, 4 times. You probably got poked. I think I'd shot a shark mackerel, I think, and I was chumming it up, trying to get in some Spanish mackerel. And I dropped the carcass to the bottom after I'd finished with it. This black tip come in. Wasn't a very big shark. He was probably only, 1.5 meters, 2 meters max. I dove down, like mid-water, just looking around as you do for mackerel. And he just came straight in at me with his pec fins down. And usually shark behavior, if their pec fins are pointing down, that's their sort of speed mode, sort of attack mode. That's when they're feeding or they're quite erratic. You do have to watch out for them when their pec fins are down. It means sort of business. So he sort of sideswiped past me and I poked him. Yeah, before I knew it, he turned around in like a matter of a millisecond and he was in my groin trying to bite my inner thigh. And I was kicking up to the surface at that point, and he just sort of finned after me, and it happened that fast. I just got to the surface and I just looked down, swearing my head off, and my mate watched it happen, and I just looking down, I was thinking, oh shit, am I bleeding? What's going on? And because I could feel
what am I missing?
Yeah, I could feel
when you're in a groin, that's not a good spot to be getting bit.
I could feel like pressure, and I could feel him hit me, but I didn't really know, it happened that fast. You obviously don't know. And then I got up and realised I was all good. I had a few marks in my wetsuit. Luckily enough, his sort of nose hit me first, and as his jaws sort of came down, it wasn't quite around my leg. So, he obviously, if he had hit me differently on a slightly different angle, could have been bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a GoPro on my head. Went back to the pub that night. The boys, obviously, that didn't see it, wanted to see it on the GoPro. And, when they saw it, they're like, holy shit, it's pretty rare to get something like that on camera. And very rarely sharks will turn around after you poke them. Like, it's very uncommon behaviour. So it was quite unlucky, I guess. And, they dared me to, put it on Facebook. And I did. Yeah, then the media got a hold of it, and it sort of it changed from there. Yeah, I don't know. Would I have shared it again on media nowadays? Maybe not. It's one of those things like, obviously you cop a lot of hate from the greenies and that.
Ruffles a few feathers.
Yeah, it's something that, for divers, it's obviously not getting bitten is not a common thing, but it's more the fact poking sharks is something that you're used to doing every time you go diving. So
just to keep them away, yeah.
And people thought I'd obviously shot the shark. They don't really know what they're watching. So, most people thought I was trying to kill it and I was trying to shoot it. Obviously, I wasn't. I was just poking it. And, he turned around and he thought, fair game, I'm going to have a bite. So,
I think Fox News in America said it was what was it, a shark mauling or something like that?
yeah, it's certainly got a.
And I think the English papers said that there was a bloodbath
worldwide.
Yeah, it's certainly got exaggerated. I remember because off Coral Bay you can't shoot like trout and a lot of your good bottom species. We were just chasing mackerel and spangos and green jobfish there. And then we'd planned to go up to Exmouth the next day after that happened. And I remember driving in the car on the way up. I got a message or a few messages from Channel 10. And somehow they got my phone number. I can't even remember how they got that. And the boys in the car, I was sort of not sure whether to do the interview and all that. And, they sort of conned me into it. They said, to be funny. And so I did the Channel 10 phone interview. And I gave a pretty, I didn't give a very detailed story, but I told them the truth. And, they seemed to bend that a fair bit. The next thing I know...
that's unlike the media.
The media wouldn't do that.
Yeah, next thing I know, we'd done a day diving off Exmouth. I've come back in. We obviously had no service out there, and I wasn't worried about my phone. We were just out there having a holiday. And I come back into land, and I think I had like 100 missed calls, and my phone just exploded. I had phone calls from America. I had emails and all sorts of shit. And next thing I knew, they'd stolen like my Facebook profile pictures and all that, and that was all on the news. And they'd done a Channel 7, 10 and 9 had done a on the news that night.
Thinking back, that was the year we came to Albany, and I do remember, I think the reason that all that did happen is there had been a few shark attacks around Australia around that time, like previous to that. And a couple of...
There was one in Esperance, I think.
Yes.
A few weeks before.
Yes, and a couple of months before there'd been a fatal one and that as well. And I think that's why all that happened, because yours went up there around the same time or just after. And I think that's why there was so much attention to it. It was quite an interesting time. We were even getting phone calls down here in our new business.
How old were you back in 16?
I was...
20?
Yeah, I was 20.
Yeah, right. So you're pretty young.
No, I was 19. I
was
19, sorry, yeah. I was 19. So.
Pretty young for copping all that sort of media attention.
Yeah, and I remember that trip. I'd actually packed up all my belongings in Perth because Mum and Dad had already moved down to Albany, and I went on that trip.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got back from that trip, I was moving to Albany. Yeah, it was just interesting at the time, and copped a lot.
He wanted to get out of there quick.
Yeah, I copped a lot of hate, like even death, to the point people are saying, giving you death threats and stuff. And there was a woman on Instagram who, I don't know, I can't remember her name. She swims with great whites and that. She's got quite a following, and she actually stole my video and put it up on her Instagram, and was carrying on about harming sharks and that. And a good thing was I had a lot of like the Spearo community were, had my back, and, were fighting back in the comments to all the greenies and stuff. So it was pretty funny to read some of it.
Oh, jeez.
You've done a lot up Coral Bay, Onslow, Exmouth. If you were going up there tomorrow, where would you go?
Oh, I really enjoyed Dirk Hardtog. Been there a couple of times. Went there for me mate Tim's Bucks party, and obviously we've been back since Sergio's. And that's a really good place for, I think, a bit of a mixture of, if you want to dive, the pelagics for, trawling plus the bottom fishing. But if it was just a dive trip, probably Onslow or the Monties. I haven't been out to the Monties yet. It's always been a bit of a dream to go out there. And obviously we got the boat to do it now, so maybe something we plan down the track.
How's the boat going? You went fishing on the weekend. What'd you catch?
Yeah, it's going good.
We'll be over there soon to get on board, mate.
Yeah,
I won't be.
I've got all the new flooring I want to put in it, and that'll finish it off. Went out the other day inshore and got some snapper and some nannies and things like that. So pretty nice weather.
You don't do a lot of diving anymore. You do, you know, most of your fishing now is off the boat or, you know, rod and reel. And you're quite experienced. You know, your knowledge is quite a lot in that field as well, you know. Where's all your knowledge from all that come from?
Not his dad.
No, yeah. Dad was a fisherman, but not probably to the level I started fishing at when I got in my teens and a bit older, in my early 20s and that. Got into commercial fishing when I moved to Albany. Obviously joined the business when it first started. I was only young, so I didn't have any trade or anything behind me. So I followed mum and dad down, and wanted to get out of Perth anyway. And when Dad developed some relationships with some professional fishermen, I'd actually worked up in Coral Bay with my uncle on the charter boat straight out of school. So I'd obviously had some time on boats and decking and things like that, and ended up getting some work on Huey's boat at first. That obviously Jaron worked on as well.
Big Al,
and Rawley. I think you learn a lot just being on the water. Probably from Bernie. Most of my fishing side of things I learn up north. Just when you're doing it every day on a charter, it's not so much specialized fishing, but just learning, how to read sounders, how to even drive a boat, how to, just everything that comes into fishing,
drifting,
how to tie riffs, even learn marlin fishing and trawling and things like that, which I haven't really done again after, living up there, but it all sort of ties into the same thing in general. And then, down on the south coast, learning to find ground and things like that and what to look for, is obviously a bit different up north. So, spending time on the water with the commercial guys definitely fast tracks your learning. And it gets you a bit ahead, I guess, on, doing it recreationally later on.
Yeah, I suppose that day in, day out on the water, and that's your experience, isn't it? More than anything, just the time on the water.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every time you go out, you're always learning.
You can sit in a shed and tie fishing, not hours and hours on end, but that's not on water experience, is it?
Nah. And I think the more you go out, you just learn more every time. You never either go out and see something new too. Like you see something new you haven't seen before every time. The other day I saw tuna busting up on the surface offshore, inshore, but in 45 meters of water, and I hadn't seen that down here yet. So you always seen something different. Just getting out there.
Yeah.
During your last 10 years, when you've been seriously fishing and that, things have changed a lot. What's your go-to gear these days when you go out for demersals?
I'm right into my lures nowadays. I still use bait, always take bait out. And then vibing as well is sort of light jigging, but it's like your soft plastic vibes.
Rods are so much lighter now too. The stuff that we used to use compared to what you give me to use on a boat now is just incredibly light. Obviously, to be able to feel the bite better, and that's certainly changed, I mean, in the last 10 years, and that, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it makes fishing more fun because, you can go and catch a good sized nanny on a giant ugly stick in a big reel and you skull drag it up. But if you do that on a PE2, PE3 setup with a jig, you have a lot of fun. And, I don't go out anymore to sort of get my bag limit or anything. I just go out for the fun of it. I like finding new ground and exploring, and I think jigging is a really good way to see what's down there fast. Like you get them down fast, and you can find ground and search for ground and use jigs, and you'll soon find out if it's any good or not when you throw a jig in.
I think that's what I've found out over the last sort of, especially 3 years, hanging around blokes sort of your age, going fishing with blokes your age who are a good 5-6 years younger than me. The technology now, you have a better chance of catching a good fish with lighter gear and lighter line. You don't have to go out, and if you're out deep with that 80-pound braid, you don't need to bring up the ocean floor.
Yeah.
There's so much more fun in that lighter gear. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I fish, even the other day, like you're fishing next to guys that are dropping bait next to you. And I use a lot of the bottom meats, obviously, that you bait up, like the vexed ones and things. But
You're sponsored by them, eh?
Nah, I'm not.
You just buy a lot of them.
Yeah, I wish I was. Leather jackets take all my jigs. You'll be fishing next to guys using bait and, you know, the bite's slow and, I'll tie a jig on and throw it down and bang, you'll hook a good fish. And sometimes, they'll get fired up because it's something new flashing in their face. And I find when things slow down, it's a way of exciting them sometimes again.
Yeah.
You've been renovating a 2000 model 7-metre leisure cat over the last few years, which was your granddad's.
Yeah.
Is that the best fishing platform that you can dream of having to go out where you go, out of Hopi and that?
Obviously pretty lucky to inherit that. And, obviously it needed a lot of work when we first got it.
Yeah, inherit a lot of work as well. Yeah, that's right. And a lot of money.
Lucky back then I was working away on the mine, so I could afford to spend a bit of my spare change on doing it up. Yeah, and putting the new motors on it was obviously a big thing. I think for down here...
It's a big platform, though, to fish off.
Yeah. And I think it's good in certain seas, and it's also bad in certain seas. Like you get sometimes a quartering sea behind you and a good swell following. They can feel a bit sketchy, but you've just got to drive them to the condition. They're like it's. I'd never driven a cat, obviously, when we got it, so it was a bit of a learning curve on how they feel in the water and things like that.
Right, so we're back on the pod now with Brad Vale. We've had a few technical issues. Chunk decided that, his wife decided to have a baby during our recording with Brad in Hopetown and us in Albany. Brad's now in Albany and, I've got a new grandson and Chunk's got a new son, Cooper, and they're both well. And now Brad's in with us. How you going, Brad?
Yeah, good.
Good. Special guest today. We've got a Perthite down here, a Ram. That's the other son-in-law. How are you, Adam?
I'm very well. Happy to fill in for Chunk today.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, he's at home with the kids. We'll just finish off this episode with Brad, and we're talking about the leisure cat that Brad and I have both renovated over the last few years. And apart from going out on that leisure cat, Brad, and having a lot of fun at Hopetown, and obviously a few trips up north as well, you started out actually fishing in the Swan River with your mate Steve, and a lot of brim fishing. Do you do much of that now?
Not as much, nah. I think having the big boat and that, most of the fishing I go and do now is just out in the ocean, but done a little bit in the rivers around Hopetown. Just enjoy using me brim lures and things like that.
We've got a lot of brim specialists down this way because we've got a lot of rivers and inlets.
Yeah.
Do a bit in the Jetta cut-up?
Yeah, a little bit off the rock. Been down there a few times, but it's not as good as it used to be, so I don't know if the rain's affected it or whatnot.
You like getting into the big fish out a bit deeper now these days because you've got a decent boat to do that. So I suppose that's one of the reasons why, the bigger the fish sort of entices you a bit more.
Yeah. And if the weather's good when you got a few days off, you make the most of it. You got a few guys, you can go out and split the fuel cost and whatnot.
You've also done a lot of crayfishing up in Perth by diving. Obviously a lot of risk in doing that, getting into caves and things like that. Got any advice for newbies going out diving for crayfish?
Yeah, obviously dive within your limits. You do go into a lot of caves and that, chasing the big jumbos. We call it jumbo fever. You get a bit excited chasing the big crays, so sort of safety goes out the door a bit. Like I was saying, diving with someone you trust, always watching each other. Once you sort of dive with people you've dived with before, you learn what you're doing and watching each other and things like that.
Adam, I think you've had a few of those crayfish to eat. He always goes out just before Christmas with his mates.
I'm certainly an expert when it comes to eating crayfish, that's for sure. I don't do a lot of the catching myself.
You just wait for him to arrive at the house, yeah?
That's it. I say, when's Brad getting back? I'm getting thirsty and I'm getting hungry.
No, we've got a pretty good state, haven't we, when you can just head off the coast, 15K, 17K off the coast and get a massive haul of crays.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I miss about Perth is, going and getting all the jumbos and that before Christmas.
Yeah, that's right.
They're a bit harder to find down on our coast.
And have you had any issues over the years, like there being less of them out off Rotto? Because it must get hammered.
No, I think it's better than what it used to be at the moment as far as what I've heard. The industry's going good at the moment, but we used to dive sort of the little nooks and crannies that probably most people wouldn't find, sort of the caves and things like that were out of the way, and that was where all the, the jumbos and that were. Or you'd find certain areas you could go back to them every year and there'd be good crays in them.
There's a photo I remember of you of a couple of massive crays, painted ones from up Onslow Way, I think. I think you might have caught them with a good friend of ours who's not with us anymore, Huey. You enjoyed diving up there, didn't you?
Yeah, yep. Did some awesome trips with him back in the day. Was lucky enough for him to take me to a lot of the spots he had. He used to actually be a commercial cray diver up there in the off season when he'd go up there and leave Albany, get out of the winter, and so yeah, had a lot of great spots he'd take us to that most people driving over him, and they were loaded with big crays, trout, and they're all under 10 metres, and that was probably some of the best diving I've ever done.
Where are you going on this trip? You're heading off in another week or so? You're going to do a couple of weeks up north with a tinny? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, we're going to go and explore the west coast of Exmouth. Probably not as much serious stuff when taking the missus up there. So just got the tinny, do a bit of snorkeling, might jump in, try and get a few
wrangle a few sharks,
crays and trout. But you got to be careful. You can't dive up there everywhere anymore and shoot trout everywhere and that. So it's a lot of it's sightseeing, I guess.
I understand the girlfriend hasn't done a lot of fishing.
No.
That's going to be interesting for her.
Yeah. Well, she's been out on the boat a few times since she enjoyed that. So she's used to being up in Darwin catching barra, which I still haven't done yet.
There you go. She can give you a few tips.
Yeah, that's right.
Where else are you going to go up there? Going to go to Curragini, Coral Bay?
Yeah, going to stay north of Coral Bay, and then in Coral Bay itself. And then after about a week there, we're going to come south and call in and check out Steep Point. I've never been up there, so I've never gone into Steep Point, so we're going to go and have a look around there. And
Adam, you're a Steep Point person?
I am. We did a week at Shelter Bay, and it was fantastic. Probably the best place I've ever camped, I would say.
It's got a good camping spot, hasn't it?
Beautiful up there. I was catching pink snapper off the beach. They were all undersized, sadly. However, but still cool enough to be able to be pulling in pink snapper.
You probably kept them as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't have a big boat. You only had a tinny, didn't you?
We went out in the tinny every day.
Most sharks were bigger than the tinny too, I think.
Lots of shark activity, taking our fish. Caught a lot of black ass, is it?
Black snapper.
Black snapper, yeah. We caught a lot of that.
Grasses.
And we're eating that every day.
Yeah, they're
so
nice.
We catch it that day, cook it up, eat it that day. It was fantastic.
That's what all the grey nomads go up there for.
No, it was good. We weren't brave enough to go over to Dirk Hartog on the barge that goes over.
Yeah, it takes your cars and that over there.
Every morning, my routine would be I'd get up, make my coffee, and go and watch newly excited young bloke generally try and get his Land Cruiser onto the barge with a wife or a girlfriend and kids in the back yelling at him because it was a bit sketchy. Watching those 4-wheel drives try and get onto that barge, but that was good to watch.
Yeah, that'd be a great place to go with a 4-wheel drive for a couple of weeks.
It's an incredible island. I mean, we've camped around it on a boat, off it, and you've camped, Brad actually off the coast of Dirk Hartog and fished all around it. It's a fantastic place to fish. And you can actually, when you're up there, you can either go on the east side and trawl and get all sorts of fish, and there's fads out there too, and or else you can go on the Denham side of it, and you can dive and get crays and baldies and pinks and everything, can't you?
Yeah. We did a trip with Chunk and one of my good mates, Justin.
Camped in Turtle Bay?
Yeah, launched in Denham, and it's about, we did about 80, it's about 80 Ks up there, I think. We fished on the way up and then camped 2 nights in Turtle Bay there, just slept on the boat. Yeah, you just got instant access to pelagic fishing, diving, everything's right there. So get up in the morning and you're straight into it.
Yeah.
But dealt with a lot of sharks. It was quite sharky when we were up there. So
that's probably why it's called Shark Bay, I suppose.
Yeah.
Lots of cobia.
Yeah. So when you get back and we get the boat back in the water, I presume the continental shelf might be next for us?
Yeah, it's a long way off the Hopetown coast though. It's sort of, the coast comes in and the shelf goes out, so it's about 35 mile off Hopetown. So it's a long way out, but I think there's plenty of good ground out there that's not really accessed by a lot of people.
Yeah, which you wouldn't mind getting out and having a look at, eh?
Yeah, when you go off Bremer, and that Bremer's only 19 mile to the shelf to the closest part, so it's a lot easier to get out there and off Bremer and Albany. But yeah, it's definitely a big distance off Hopetown. You got to get a good day to get right out there and back.
What sort of gear do you go deep sea fishing now?
Most of the inshore stuff. I mean, I'm in under 70 metres, so I like PE3 setup, PE3, PE4. So I use mainly spin reels. I got a little overhead as well, but the Saragosas, 6,000, 8,000. Then matched to a Ocean's Legacy PE3 or 4 rod. Seems to be nice and light and got enough beef in them to still land your sambos and things like that.
Good feel too, haven't they?
Yeah.
When you got new equipment that's quite light and you can certainly feel the fish biting.
Yeah, and usually if I'm using bait, I'll use bottom meats. Might use the old paternoster still every now and then, but yeah, it's just easy fishing when you get on the nannies and that. You can send a bottom meat down or the odd jig down.
Yep. All right. Thanks for talking to us, Brad. It's been a very long pod, this one. Probably about 3 days long.
Yeah, about a week.
But we'll blame that on Chunk and Haley for having a baby in between. But good to catch up with you. Good that you're in Hopi. We want to get over there and do a bit more fishing, don't we, Adam?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And looking forward to hearing some of your stories when you get back from this most recent trip.
Yeah, I might need a couple of footy players too for the grand final over there. So
who's that? Playing in what league?
The Hopetown Ravensthorpe League, mate.
Very good. Isn't there? Weren't you telling me it's a big comp, that one?
Yeah, two teams.
You're going to hopefully make finals?
Hopefully we make the grand final, yeah.
Nah, mate, I'll come down and qualify. Play one game, is it?
That's right, yeah.
I think when Chunk over baby duties, I think he wants to get over there to have one game for the year too.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll be all fun.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks for popping in, finishing off the pod, Brad. And
worries.
We'll catch up soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Brad.
See you later.